Little Dragon. This story is all about David the Dragon. He is only one of 500 dragons in the world, and years ago he found himself in Vietnam. David usually lived in an old volcano in Hawaii, but he had to leave. One night, about 2 a.m., he was sleeping when there was a loud bang. He woke up and looked around. There was lightning and rain falling from the sky. He flew up to see how bad it was, but as he did, he saw another storm heading towards him. David decided that he had to fly to safety. The mainland was no good because the storm was heading there. That only left the sea. He decided to fly to Japan. David has a grandfather who lives in Japan, and he always liked to visit him. After flying for 5 hours, he started to feel tired. Let's face it, he only has small wings, and he's a little fat. Anyway, he tried and he tried, but he was losing altitude and started getting closer to the sea. He was still very far away from Japan, and the closest land was Vietnam. He decided to stop in Vietnam for a rest. First, he went to Ho Chi Minh City, and he loved the food there. The people were friendly, and things were not too expensive. Then he travelled up to Da Nang, but he thought that was boring. Then he went to Hue and stayed for a few days. The food in Hue was very different from that in Ho Chi Minh City. It was interesting to try new things, and he saw the paper boat festival and lanterns. Unfortunately, his tummy started to hurt, and he had to use the bathroom. "Excuse me, where is the bathroom?" he asked a man. The man shook his head. He tried again, but no one could speak English. "Oh my God," he cried, "I need to go now." Then he saw some bushes and walked over casually. He wasn't used to going to the bathroom in the public place, but it was, after all, an emergency. He came out from the bush and wiped his feet on the pavement. "That's better," he sighed. Then he noticed something. People he hadn't seen. They were on the opposite side of the river, and they were shaking their heads in a disapproving manner. David called out, "I'm sorry, it was an emergency," but they still looked unhappy. Then one of the women shouted, "You are in the garden of the king." David looked around and saw a huge palace. He walked away quickly before his stomachache returned and went back to his hotel. The next day he flew to Hanoi, and when he arrived he landed at Hoang Kim Lake. The lake looked so peaceful and calm. He sat down beside the lake and looked at the tower in the middle. "Oh, I feel like I'm finally home," he said happily. David thought about going to Japan, but instead he stayed in Hanoi. A few months later, he fell in love with a Vietnamese dragon, and life could not have been better. Unfortunately, some people in Hanoi were not as nice as people from other places he had been. They would be impolite about his weight and call him names. Some would rub his tummy or say, "How many kilos?" The thing that made David most miserable was when girls looked at him and said, "Oh, he would be so handsome if he was not fat." He loved living in Hanoi, but he didn't know what to do. If he lived there, people would continue to be mean and horrible. If he left, he would have to leave the girl he loved. What could he do? David still lives in Hanoi, and he has a nice home. He doesn't care about what other people say, and he doesn't listen when they say bad things. He knows that people who say bad things are bad people, and as long as he was a good dragon and did good things, he would always be the best. The end. Thanks for listening. See you next time.